Joining me now for reaction is Rogue States Project President Harry Kazianis. Harry, it's good to see you. You see the video that we bumped in with of the young lady, live footage of what's happening on the ground. The concern, of course, is that this just continues to escalate, that Vladimir Putin's been backed into a corner. His position is that he's, that he's losing this war to Ukraine. At the same time, the Ukrainians can't finish it off quickly. And so as that goes on, you get this back and forth. First, it's the bridge connecting Russia to Crimea. Then he feels that he needs to retaliate. And the big question is, well, how far does this have to go before it's over?
Well, it could end in nuclear war, and that's not an exaggeration. That's the truth. I mean, Vladimir Putin is very dangerous when he has 6,400 nuclear warheads, the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, and he is backed into a corner. The challenge here is that no side really can claim a true victory unless we're willing to give Ukraine, $100 billion plus in U.S. military aid. There's no way that they're going to be able to kick every Russian soldier out of every part of Ukraine. That is just not reality. At the same time, the Russians don't have the capability to cleave off a big enough chunks of Ukraine to claim any sort of victory. So we are essentially at a stalemate here. And what I fear is that these escalations will continue and Putin will get desperate and use a nuclear weapon. And then we're in a whole different world.
We had, Harry, General Jack Keane on earlier, and we were discussing whether or not, Putin was just making a threat or whether he would consider going that far. And the general seemed to believe that it was a threat, that he would never do it because he would become a pariah, essentially within the rest of the world. But having said that, if he becomes desperate enough, I mean, it's hard to look at someone like Vladimir Putin and think he's just putting something out there to make an idle threat.
Well, I'll be honest, a lot of people didn't think he'd invade Ukraine either, and here we are almost 8 months later. I think Putin is deadly serious. I think if he starts to feel that a coup could be hatched around him, there's always those rumors. There's always rumors that he's sick with cancer or Parkinson's. Those have been out for a long time. I mean, never, ever underestimate somebody who has nothing to lose, especially if Putin thinks his life is at risk and he feels the only way to maybe get the West or NATO to back off a little bit would be either to demonstrate a tactical nuclear weapon in the field or maybe use one against a low-priority target to say, I'm willing to use a lot more of these, back away. Right. I don't think we can take it off the table.
And then, of course, there's this issue of funding, right? Ukraine started off on its heels. It didn't have all the tools that it needs. It didn't have the weaponry that it needed. We were able to send that over. The soldiers were able to get trained on that. And that's when the Ukrainians became more aggressive and more successful. But it seems like every time Vladimir Putin, ratchets up the stakes and destroys more on the ground there, the Ukrainians turn to us and say, well, you have to keep it coming or we can't keep doing this. And many people are questioning how long the funding should continue. The president said he'll do it as long as it takes.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Joe Biden's lying because we're literally taking out our own stockpiles from the Pentagon and giving these weapons to Ukraine. It's not like we have Lockheed Martin building new javelins instantaneously. We're literally taking them out of our own warfighters' hands and giving them to Ukraine. And look, I think for the short term, that isn't the wrong thing to do. I think we should be doing that. But over the long term, what the Biden administration needs to do is to tell the American people what's their strategy towards Ukraine. I mean, we have just this very basic, well, Ukraine is going to win the war and that's the strategy. Well, what does victory for Ukraine look like? Nobody has any sort of idea. The American people need to know, where's Joe Biden heading with this? Because I don't think anybody can answer that question. And that's the truth.
Harry Kazianis, thank you so much, sir. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.